Hi guys, it's Matt, and today in these slides I'll show you guys all about depth first search, one of the fundamental searching algorithms you guys will encounter here in Algorithmics. Now without further ado, I'll pass it back to myself.
Thanks for passing it back to me, and now I'll go a little bit more in depth about depth first search. So what is depth first search? Well, essentially depth first search is just breadth first search using a stack instead of a queue. This means that it's going to explore its branches and then return to the root, as opposed to checking all the adjacent children of the root node and then continuing down. Now here's a little example I've set up. So hopefully you've watched my previous video, but after the tragic loss of Bob on the Titanic 2, his family realized they also lost something a little bit greater than him, the family jewel, the brain of the sea. So they've decided to commission the great algorithmic geologist Georgia to find a suitable replacement diamond for the new pendant. And she's narrowed it down to a plot of land containing 4 boreholes, and the jewel is somewhere down one of them.
I want you to check, recheck, and then do it all over again.
So a mining company has been brought in to recover the jewel.
Well, Mr. Stamper, what do you think?
You know, drilling's a science. It's an art.
Now, just before we get started, let's compare breadth first search and depth first search. So in essence, they're the same algorithm, and there is never going to be one stronger than the other unless there's pre-existing conditions that conflict that. In our case, this condition might be that moving equipment is expensive. So instead of, checking each of the first level ones and then moving them back and forth, it might be more cheaper or, more efficient to just dig down all the way through one of them and then move it. Now, also an example, it doesn't have to be at the bottom. So depth first search doesn't have to be checking for, the ultimate child node. It can look for a node that has children. Because of this, in this example, it would be stronger than breadth first search, even if it's not at the very bottom, because it will check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where breadth first search will check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's work through an example here with some pseudocode. Cool. So the algorithm depth first search mining, it's going to create a stack of options, a list of check nodes, and it'll set all the scene to false. It'll add that ground, so a starting one to checked, and then it will go through. And for each of them, each of the neighbors, it will push X or that node into options, and then it will pop them out to recheck them and continue on forwards. So in our case, it will start with ground, and then it will add its first child node here. Now it will also have these at the bottom of the stack, but then it will look for this one's children's. It will find that one, so that will go at the top of the stack. So when we go to the next node, instead of going here, it goes to here. Similarly, we'll go down one more. However, because this has no children, it won't add anything to this list of checking nodes. And instead, it will check for the next node that it had in the stack, which will be this one here. And then finally, it looks for its children, and we've found the brain of the sea. Now let's look at some pseudocode for this. Well, not pseudocode, actual code. So for Snap Apps, it's extremely comparable to the code for breadth first search. Again, it's basically identical, except you need to make sure to use a stack instead. You'd have to change the enqueue and dequeue to push and pop. For Python, it's basically the same thing. Instead of popping the first item of the list, just make sure you're popping the back item of the list. This is very comparable to the code for a breadth first search. As you see, they're super similar, to be kind of honest. Now I'll pass it back to me to give sort of like the outro. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. The last thing I will mention is, especially for Python people, a lot of the depth first search you're going to find online is going to be recursive. I highly recommend, regardless of Python or Snap Apps, check out the recursive algorithm. Make sure you understand how to implement it, as it is a really neat way. And probably, in my opinion, the best way to understand recursion is knowing how to do a recursive depth first search.
Well, that's it guys. I hope you guys gained a lot of knowledge about depth first search today. It's super important and vital that you understand this, so obviously rewatch the video. But thanks so much for watching. Take care.